Welcome to Scorched Earth and a general monthly reading for the sign of Gemini, Sun, Moon or Ascendant for the month of June. I hope you're well. Using the Llewellyn Tarot for you today. What do I have to tell you? That whole Mercury retrograde thing, I've been talking about it a lot. So I won't go into it too much, but it is in Gemini. So the received wisdom is that you should find it more intense than some of the other signs. But interestingly enough, I did the weekly read for that was like the 30th to the 6th of June, which is when Mercury is in retrograde. And it doesn't seem to be affecting you that badly. It certainly seems to be souping something up for you in some ways. So I'm going to refrain from judging too hard as to what your responses should be to Mercury retrograde, and just give you some general advice. So communication is usually the biggest one. Miscommunications are highly likely at this point. So you may find it more difficult to articulate what you're trying to say to other people, and they may find it in turn also difficult to articulate back. So you can find yourself on kind of talking to cross purposes, or even saying things that have been taken entirely the wrong way by another person, and vice versa. So the general advice that I'm giving out at this point is to be compassionate in all of your communications, and if somebody says something that really upsets you, consider the possibility that they may just not have quite said it the way that they meant to, that sort of thing. If you possibly can, avoid signing contracts at this point, and maybe also buying big ticket items. And if you have to do those, make sure that contracts are double checked and triple checked. Make sure that you really understand what it is that you're committing yourself to, because sometimes these things can kind of come back, and there's a clause that you missed, in your rush to sign, that kind of bites you on the arse and restricts you in some way. What else? Travel communication, travel mishaps are also likely at this time. Delays, that sort of thing. And technology has a what does it have? I've lost the word that I'm looking for. A tendency to go slightly awry at this time of year as well. Is there anything else? It's not a good time to start something new. It's reflective energy. It's going back over old things to make sure that you've done it properly, that you've tidied up after yourself, as it were. You may see new people, old people returning. But if they do, just bear in mind that the people that reappear in a retrograde very rarely stay. It's an opportunity to close out those old cycles properly in a way that you might not have done before. And by that, clarifying your feelings about them and kind of laying things to rest. Sometimes they don't have to return at all. Sometimes it can be, you have a conversation with someone and they go, oh, you'll never guess who I saw the other day, and it'll be this person, and actually what's brought up is the memory of that person, and that gives you an opportunity to work through it. So it kind of standard rules apply. It's not something to be frightened of, but it can be a trifle frustrating at times, and it does make you go back and make sure that you've done everything properly. It's useful, So let's get on with the reading. There will be an extended at the end if this resonates with you, so the link will be in the description box. Let's have a look. I have 3 cards for Gemini, please. Oh, there's the first one. We have the Page of Wands in your recent past. Current energy for Gemini, please. We have the Ten of Wands in your current energy. And what's coming towards Gemini in June? 6 of Swords. I like this for you. We've got the 3 of Swords at the bottom of the deck with the Page of Cups and the Hanged Man. And I've had this feeling that everything's been a bit foggy for Gemini of late. it's almost like that, you know, laser fast mind that you have. It's always going. It's maybe been going around in circles a little bit, or at least there's been some sort of fogginess. You know, you kind of find yourself going over the same bits over and over again. You're finding it difficult to kind of think out in a different direction. We've got this Three of Swords at the bottom of the deck here. And in the Llewellyn, it's got a very historic quality to the artwork on it. You know, it looks quite aged. This feels like past hurts, not something that's necessarily just happened in front of you right now. It's something that goes, you know, quite a bit further back. But what I do like is that underneath it we do have this Page of Cups, and we have the Hanged Man here. Now, the Page of Cups is a card that speaks to me about forgiveness and compassion, often directed towards oneself. And I think the general feeling that I'm getting here is that you have been stuck in somewhat of a cognitive loop, and you haven't really been able to think your way out of this situation. But in being lost in that fog somewhat, and there's even a foggy quality to this Hanged Man there, look, that what's happened is finally you found a way to look at things differently. And with that has come this more gentle approach to those things that have wounded you in the past. You know, those things that still kind of rattle along underneath that you hadn't really been aware of. Let's get some clarifiers. I'm using the Lost Forest to clarify. Let's see what all of this is about down here. Tell me about the Page of Wands, please. Fucking hell. I'm not taking clattering cards. I'm going to do better than that. We do have one that jumped out. We have the Two of Wands in reverse. Page of Wands, thank you. And the Ace of Wands. Interesting. Tell me about the Ten of Wands, please. Thank you. We have the King of Wands. Very fierce looking King of Wands. What's this? And we have the Hanged Man again. Tell me about the Six of Swords. Cards tumbling out to the right, and I don't take the ones that fall to the right, but we've got the King of Cups there. Those back in. We'll get one more. Six of Swords, thank you. We have the Chariot, nice, okay. So, further speaking to that sense of fog and that kind of lack of direction that you've had for a little bit there, Gemini, we've got the Eight of Swords at the bottom of this deck here, and it's followed by the Judgment card. It really does feel to me, in fact, hey, let's have a look at this Two of Swords underneath here too. The general feeling of this is that stuckness, is that frustration, a lack of direction, a lack of movement. But the Judgment energy is of often of things being resurrected so that you can look at them and make, you know, pass proper judgment on them this time. Maybe something that you had thought you had dealt with, but you thought you dealt with successfully. It's kind of re-arisen for you to look at it and go, oh, actually, no, I see where my thinking was quite limited in that, and actually it needs to expand a little bit. You know, Gemini is associated with expansive thinking, and that's why this fog has been quite unusual for you. But there's always a lesson in there somewhere. There's always a message in there somewhere for you. And sometimes it's not even a case of knowing where to look. It's being aware that lesson will exist, and when it's ready, it's going to come and show its face to you. Because sometimes we can't force these things, you know. So we've got this interesting triumvirate of wand cards here in your recent past. We have the Page of Wands, but then we have the Two of Wands in reverse, and then the Ace of Wands. Now, the Page of Wands is kind of like excitement about the future, you know. The whole wand suit is about living for me. It is about the way that you live, the way that you enjoy your life, you know, the things that bring great passion to your life, the drive sometimes. And the Page of Wands is a precursor to movement. So that's where the excitement comes from. It's like the possibility of movement is in you know, on the horizon, and this page is starting to get excited about the things that they will experience on this journey that they're about to go on. But this Two of Wands coming up here in reverse is interesting, because where the Two of Wands in the upright talks about a crossroads energy, you know, coming to a place and choosing which direction you're going to go in, or rather before choosing, actually, you know, considering the consequences of walking down whichever road it is that you will eventually choose, you know, just making sure that you're going to end up in the right place. But coming up in the reverse like this, it almost feels like you actually kind of missed something. There's something has been missed. And so rather than feeling like you're at a crossroads and you get to dictate which way you move forwards, it's almost like, to some degree, it was taken out of your hands, and you've ended up going down a road that you hadn't intended on going on. Like, there was no, I was going to say pre-thought, but that's not even a thing. You know, the words hard. There was no pre-consideration of the path. It just seems that you've happened upon it. And almost in retrospect, you can see that there was the possibility of another direction, but for some reason you missed that at the time and you just carried on down this road. And this road isn't bad, to be honest, because we've got this Ace of Wands here. There's potential. There's great potential down here. We look at these. I really love how they're depicted in the Lost Forest, where the Ace of Wands is an egg. It's this, you know, steaming, smoking egg, and the Two of Wands is that egg cracked open. There's the potential. There's the movement of the potential. You've got to take it and do something with it. Otherwise, it just stays an egg, right? Tell me about this two's funky. Nine of Wands. We've got more Wands cards. We've got Nine of Wands, and we've got the Seven of Pentacles. It's almost like you drifted down a road, possibly while you were stuck in your own head trying to sort all sorts of things out. I just noticed that the Hanged Man is at the bottom of this deck as well. And, you know, to carry the metaphor forwards, it's almost like you were wandering down a road in the fog and you missed a turn-off, which you had thought you were going to take. But in the event, you've ended up quite some way down the road past it. And so, whilst technically you could turn around and go back and look for that turn-off, this road seems like it's got potential, and it feels like your curiosity's been engaged somewhat as to where this is going. Tell me about the Ace of Wands. We've got the Strength card and we've got the Queen of Swords. Now the Queen of Swords is in reverse. It's a card of Libra. It's quite interesting because the Queen of Swords is very logical, a very rational energy. And there's something of the irrational about the route that you find yourself on now. Now, not to say like it's mad and it's crazy and stuff like that, but it's not a terribly logical route to take, but one that you seem to have been pulled down anyway. And the Strength card is the card of Leo. But it is a card of healing and it is a card of strength. Well, obviously it's a card of strength, but it's a card of empowerment and growth. And it's interesting how had you been given the opportunity to sit down and employ that very sparky Gemini brain to it, you wouldn't in a month of Sundays gone anywhere near this route. But now you're here, it's almost like curiosity's taken over. And for whatever reason, there's a great deal of growth in that decision, which is to say the decision not to go backwards. We have the Four of Wands, Four of Wands, it's Four of Swords at the bottom of this deck. And it speaks of meditation, but it also speaks about taking a break, taking a step back. It could be that you had been quite concerned about the fog that you've been in. You've been quite concerned about the way that it's caused you to draw back from people. But now you're on this road. You're quite prepared to see where it goes, see where it takes you. And it feels quite unusual for you. I mean, I don't know if it's unusual for you, but it feels like it's an unusual decision to make. We have the Three of Swords at the bottom of the deck here, and obviously this Four of Swords follows on from it. It feels like you've been on an internal journey, Gemini. And part of the reason why everything was so foggy was almost because you were trying to think your way out of a situation that actually just required you to sit still and feel your way through the situation. Well, I think that penny has dropped for you. I think that you've twigged that now. And now it's more about your curiosity. Oh, like, where am I going with this? You know, let's see where this route takes us. We've got the Empress underneath the Four of Swords. It feels like there's just a touch of something here that says there is potential abundance down here. I don't know what it is. I don't really know where I'm going. I certainly don't have a map. But it doesn't feel unsafe. And I've never been down here before, so I'm going to go this way and see what happens. Now, all of that seems to have occurred in your recent past, and by that I mean probably a maximum of 2-3 weeks. That's it, right? Probably feels like a lot longer, I would say. But in your current energy, you've got the Ten of Wands. Now, this is a card of burden. It's a card of many different aspects of burden. You know, taking on too much responsibility, taking on too much physical toil. You know, that sort of thing. Doing too much for other people, but often going about things a really difficult way around. Because when I look at this, I think, do you need all of those wands, truly? I mean, this page here, he only has the one. He has the Ace of Wands in his hands. You have the Ace of Wands directly underneath that, right there. Could you make do with fewer wands? Could you have stashed some under a bush and come back for them later? All of these things are what I start to think about when I look at the Ten of Wands. But it does indicate completion because it is 10. And so what you have been struggling with really does seem to be coming to an end, but not necessarily because the things that you've been struggling with are being, you know, you're being unburdened of them. Not like somebody's coming along and going, oh, you look like you need a hand with those ones, shall I take them for you? Give me half, you know, something like that. It's not like you've got back to the house finally with, you know, say 3 wands and you've met somebody, so I've got another 7 wands underneath a bush somewhere, when you come back and give me a hand, I'll buy you a beer afterwards, you know. It feels more, particularly with this Hanged Man appearing over and over again, that what has changed is the way that you are looking at the situation. Now, it could be that it has now become obvious to you that you are carrying too much weight, you are carrying too much of a burden. Or it could be that the way that you were looking at things before was the burden, right? Because the Hanged Man is all about changing perspective. It's about submitting, actually, also to an energy in order to achieve enlightenment. Right? It's not giving up. It's submitting to something that is requiring you to submit. Now, we have all of these. I've got 3 decks on the table here, and all 3 of them, the Hanged Man has made an appearance. And so the submission is a huge part of that. And if you've been sort of guided down a road that you were never intending to go down, then the act of you deciding that you're going to follow this path and see where it leads you is an act of submission right there. So it could very well be that. But this shift in perspective that's occurred as you've been wandering through this fog, it's almost like, spiritually speaking, in the absence of the visual input, because the fog is in the way, it's given you a chance to kind of explore your own mind too. You know, it's almost been like a type of spiritual sensory deprivation. Not just your own mind, your own heart. You know, I feel like you're walking your memories. I do feel like you've had a number of things that you kind of forgotten about just popping up, completely unbidden, coming from nowhere. Old situations, you know, kind of looking at them and going, where have you come from? Why did I forget about you? You know, it seems like there are really important lessons that are kind of bubbling up to the surface. And all of it is underpinned here by this submission to whatever is going on within. Now, the cards that you have to clarify the Ten of Wands there are the King of Wands and the Hanged Man. And I actually really like this, because not only have you gone from a page to a king here, you've got all of this wand energy going on. The King of Wands only needs one wand. You know, there's no greed there. He can do exactly what he needs with one, because it's got the full potential of everything in that entire suit contained therein. And it feels like it's a process of discernment now. But it's a spiritual discernment. It's an emotional discernment. It's not a logical one. And it could be that you've found yourself doing like rather odd things, but it's just what feels right. You know, maybe it is that you've just gone and sat in the woods and looked up. You know, I love the perspective of this, because it is somebody lying down in the forest looking up at the sun directly overhead, seeing the trees, you know. Look at that. It's really beautiful. There doesn't feel like there's any struggle here, Gemini. I feel a gentle curiosity, and I feel that what was discombobulating and what was initially irritating and maybe even slightly frightening, this fog, it's actually now starting to feel like a warm blanket. It's starting to feel a little bit like a friend, because it's kind of bringing online a different organ to consider things with. Anything other than your brain. But the important thing is that you have here the epitome of, there's the High Priestess at the bottom of the deck, the epitome of action, right? The card in the tarot that indicates really positive, affirmative, physical action. And that is the King of Wands. It's masculine fire. And so it's very active. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman or whatever, it's not gender specific. But it seems like you are getting a greater sense of how it is that you I was going to say go after what you want, but it doesn't feel quite like that. It feels more like how you experience what you have, Gemini. Because the King of Wands is about active experience. And it's an increase in enthusiasm for what it is that you do. So you've gone from feeling burdened to feeling engaged and possibly feeling quite blessed too. It feels, Gemini, like a mini spiritual awakening, and in the best tradition of these things, it's you know, it's not being dramatic and flary, and you haven't had visions and so. You might have had visions, I don't know. It has been, instead, like I said, kind of discombobulating, and there's the feeling that I've got of you being kind of cut off, not just from, you know, the world at large, but also possibly from people around you. It's a very withdrawn energy that I've got here, but I do feel like you're making sense of it now. So we have the Ten of Cups, and we have the Two of Wands. coming out underneath here, and we have the Four of Wands. Underneath we have the Three of Swords, we have the Moon, and we have the World card. Something's been revealed to you. Or rather, I think you've revealed it to yourself, because it does feel like your subconscious has been at play here. And there's this really profound crossover between the spiritual and the unconscious, that it feels like you've been navigating this realm. Like I said, the visual input is not there. The almost the mental input is not there. It's like you've had this huge layer of cotton wool put between you and your or between your cognition and the outside world and people and you know, even people that are really, really close to you. Like you've been put in a bubble. You don't move until you work out how you feel about this bubble, or until you feel positively about this bubble, you know. And I think that you do, because what seems to have occurred here is a return to gratitude, a return to the importance of the way that you live, of the people that are around you. You know, it's almost like, you know, you've got to lose something before you recognize its true value. That's what some people say, right? And it's not like you have lost anyone, Gemini, but what you have had is that kind of separation, that withdrawal a little bit. Now, what's been going on in you is very, very important for you here, but it will have its expression in the way that you deal with people henceforth from this point on. You know, because for whatever reason you've been carrying a burden around with you that it wasn't possible for you to discover and then latterly explore when you had too much information coming in from the outside world. And even with the way that your Gemini brain works most of the time, you know, it's just like sparking all over the place. The mental energy, the restlessness is really, really strong. But there's a peace here, there's an acceptance here, there's a submission here. And there's almost a setting aside of the mental energy and using other things to kind of feel your way through. It feels actually like you've sloughed off a skin, Gemini. And I don't think that you're out of the woods yet. I don't think that you've nailed any of this down in the way that you would like to yet, but there's an increasing sense of comprehension now. You know, if I was to think, you know, magic and spiritual works, or like Wingardium Leviosa and stuff like that, but it's not. It isn't. Often it's the point where we are the most lost and the most confused that the biggest growth happens, and this seems to be what is going on for you here in June. It's, well, not quite in June, you know, in the run up to June. It's the sloughing off of the skin. And one that your mind might have stopped you from even acknowledging was there. You know? So when we move to June, the card that we have is the Six of Swords. And I think this is the completion of the sloughing of the skin. The Six of Swords is about moving away from a situation, right? It moves away from the Five of Swords, and the Five of Swords is a difficult mental energy. I mean, sometimes it's internal conflict, sometimes it's cognitive loops. And I did say right at the beginning that I felt like you'd been kind of stuck in that. You've been trying to batter your way out of this mentally, and it wasn't actually happening. Because you were never supposed to be able to batter your way out of it. You were supposed to feel your way out of it. You were supposed to submit to the energy and learn to find a way to not be quite so reliant on the mental energy, right? On the way that your mind works. And here it's happening, right? Moving away from that, traveling to a safe distance. It's an acknowledgement of the lesson as it has presented to you. And taking the experience with you now on the next leg of your journey down a road that you did not intend to go down, but you are nevertheless prepared to go with it and see where it goes. We have the King of Cups and we have the Chariot. underneath to clarify it there. Now, the King of Cups is the card of Scorpio, and the Chariot is Cancer. I don't actually feel like those are relevant here, but it's interesting how few swords for an air sign appear on this reading. It has been dominated by wands for a start. Got a pentacle. But now we're moving into cups territory. We're talking about emotions. Something quite deep and profound is going on with you this month, during June. And it's the culmination of the energy that you have been in for the last few weeks. It's that process. I mean, is it sloughing off a skin, or is it cocooning yourself up and then re-emerging as a butterfly? I mean, either metaphor, it kind of works, really, because there's something that's changed on quite a profound level with you. And the upshot is you're coming out of the other side in a state of emotional maturation. You know, something's been released, something's been let go, something's been put down. And now, instead of struggling with 10 wands on your back, we have this imagery of movement. Right? There, that King of Wands is a merman, right? And he can swim around in the ocean, right? Navigate his own emotions really, really well. Like, you know, it's just like a big fucking fish, you know? We've got the Chariot on the back of a lion here, right? We've seen moving at some speed here. The Chariot is the card of the self, in amongst other things. It speaks to self-discipline, self-motivation, but also self-discovery and shadow work. It could well be that you have been in a state of shadow for a little while, and you had not consciously entered it. Like I said, it feels like you've been kind of almost, you know, coerced down this road. Or at least feeling like you've been kind of tricked into it ever so slightly. But now you're here, it feels like there's a great marshalling of your emotional resources. It's almost like your value system has been reinvigorated. Your connection to spirit feels much, much stronger all of a sudden. Yeah, got the Two of Pentacles. Oh shit. Six of Cups. The Hermit and the Lovers. It does feel like you've been doing some shadow work. Like, fuck, we've got the Eight of Cups at the bottom of the deck here. And like I said, because it came in so oddly, it was so slightly surreal. It was just waking up with a fuzzy head and just not being able to shift it, but it's gone on for weeks and weeks and weeks, and it's just like, what the fuck is this? You know, I can't do anything. Submitting to that energy has given you the ability to go within and release something that's very, very deep-seated, Gemini. And you are out the other side now. Like, we've got this Two of Pentacles here, which, like the Chariot, also talks about balance and alignment, right? Being able to juggle all of these things. But specifically with regard to the Six of Cups, now that's my card of the past, right? Just past. But that can be your childhood. It can be involving your children. You know, it can be all of these sorts of things, and there are lots of ways in which this can present. If you have a mother wound, and most of us, let's face it, do, you know, it could be that there has been some work that has gone on here, and what you're actually finding is, because a mother wound doesn't just stop with you, right? If you have children, then that mother wound passes down. Like, it may not pass in the same way that you experienced it, but unless it's worked on, it will find a different route, and it will take that too, and you can track this back. You can see it. And when you look at objectively, look at the maternal line going back, You can see all the different types of wounding and how it was never addressed and how it just gets stronger and stronger as it moves down. And so it could have been some revelations that you've had about your own children, you know, whether you're a mother or a father. It doesn't really matter. But although you don't feel like it, and I know you don't feel like it because I can feel that you don't feel like it, it's taken a tremendous amount of bravery to walk the road that you have taken, to submit in the way that you have, and to look at what you have revealed to yourself. Most people turn away from that because they don't want, it challenges their ego narrative, and most people's ego is very, very brittle. Yours is so strong because you really have gone within. Because said in the first instance, you had to submit to the energy as it was presenting to you in the first place. But this feels like a really vital journey that you've been on here, because it is taking you somewhere, Gemini. Like this road that feels like you're just kind of ambling along it, and you know, because you didn't take the turning that you were intending to. It has a destination. And what you've done here was a necessary part of getting there. Now, things have been left behind, and that's important. You know, we see it both in the cups and in the swords. So even, you know, in your words and in your emotions, I assume also in your actions, because you have the wands here. Something about you is very, very different now, Gemini, after this experience. And it's so subtle and it's so nuanced that it's perhaps only when you sit in a state of meditation that you feel that difference for now. But those micro adjustments that we make at an early point, you know, they have a huge impact on where we end up in the end. And it feels like you've had your course diverted somewhat. The final card that you've got there is the Lovers. Now, that is the card of Gemini. That is your card. And so we could actually see this, you know, really traversing into the heart of you and what it is to be Gemini. But it feels like there's something more than that going on here. And I don't know if it's going to come out in the extended, or whether this is something that we're going to see the result kind of coming through towards the end of the year, right? But it's not entirely clear to me, but it does feel like you have been ever so slightly just diverted here, right? And it's been terribly, terribly important. There's a great feeling of peace and acceptance around you now, which I find really, really interesting. And like I said, it does feel like you were slightly tricked into wandering down this road. Not in a pejorative sense, just in a, you know. But you're comfortable with that now. What an intriguing reading. Right. This is what I have for you. I'm going to go over to Vimeo now because I'm really curious to see what's going on. I'm going to focus specifically on June because I think I have a very clear idea of what you've been going through, you know, how you are arriving here at June. But let's have a look a little bit deeper and see what's going on specifically there, because I do think I do get a strong sense of things happening behind the scenes here for you now, Gemini. Things sort of clunking into place because you're walking down this road and activating the things that need to move along the way, you know. So if you want to join me over there, the link is in the description box. If not, no shade. I will see you on Monday for the weekly readings. Know that I love you all very, very much, and I will see you soon.